All right, so we just finished looking at this table here, talking about the 5 thresholds of faith put together by Don Evers and Doug Schaub, and I once was lost. And what we're trying to do right now is trying to workshop these ideas, and we want to look at how do we create different evangelistic outreaches that help people who are unchurched get an opportunity to hear the gospel, but also consider where they are in their process towards faith in Christ. We want to help them move through the threshold of learning to trust a Christian, becoming curious about Jesus, opening up to changing the way they believe and see life, seeking after who Jesus is, and then finally entering into his kingdom. So we've already talked through that in our session right now. Let's just share some of the ideas that we have around evangelistic outreaches, and we're just going to workshop them. We're going to brainstorm, pick them apart, and say, like, let's consider all the sides of the different things that we're coming up with. So Dean Price, would you like to begin with us, and we can help you out?
Actually, I was wondering if Pastor Beswick was ready. She was ready to go.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I'm so sorry. Yeah, Pastor Sonia, you want to go ahead and start? I apologize. Forgot all about that.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm never easily offended. Go right ahead, sir.
And
hopefully I'm on track here. So one of the things I had been wanting to do, and I started working with this organization in human trafficking, against human trafficking a couple of years ago. And because they work more in the East Bay. In the South Bay, there wasn't a lot of effort here in the city of San Francisco. So one of the things that they do is they do workforce training, which that's what I did in one of my past lives. So I really was excited about that. So I'm looking at partnering with an organization called Love Never Fails, a friend and colleague of mine that heads up the organization to do an ICAP training. So it's a cyber training workshop, cybersecurity training workshop. And they provide clothing, food, training, and connecting once they are fully trained with connecting them with jobs. And so I really love, opportunities like that to help create opportunities and build a platform of success up under young people like that. So we've already begun discussions and preparing a planning meeting, strategy meeting. And this was one of the things that, because I had her come in and speak this past Sunday. So Kevin from Google was excited about that. And so he has shown interest in wanting to help build a social media presence to begin to market it. And so again, hopefully we'll be able to.
Let me interrupt you and ask you a question to get to the evangelistic piece. What are you hoping, who is your target audience that you're wanting to be able to share the gospel with? And how are you hoping to take this great idea to make it evangelistic in the sense of either whether it's building relationships with lost people who are unchurched or being able to share the gospel with them or whatever? What threshold are you targeting for this particular outreach?
I imagine when you say threshold, you mean demographic?
The threshold for the tables that I just mentioned? So
yeah, the two, which is the distrust. Let me go back to my paper because I was looking at the information. Let me go back here. I have a lot of windows open on my other computer.
Oh, I understand.
So the distrust to trust, and that's the so the threshold within this, for me, it's two. Those that we'll be reaching out to for the from human trafficking side, as well as the agencies, because we're looking at hosting it at our church. And so the event would also look to draw in some of the people that I've been reaching out to. So the police officers who would serve as a presence of support, and also the person from the mayor's office who is interested in things like this. So, you know, those that have been that are curious, right, from those that I'm working with, as well as those that are in the distrust stage. So it's 2 thresholds from this 5 prong platform here.
That's huge. And so it sounds like what you're saying is you want to be able to, I call them partners. So like your partners that you're working with, you're wanting to help build relationship with them so they trust you, put a new face, so to speak, or a different kind of face, a more understandable face on Jesus and the gospel and the kingdom. Right. While you're doing this work. Did I also hear you say you're trying to share the gospel with those that are being trafficked? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes.
What would that look like? What would that look like?
I don't know what it would look like because this is my first opportunity. Mm-hmm. We haven't even started the serious planning, so I'm not quite sure what it would look like yet.
Gotcha. Okay. So guys, let's take this idea and that she shared, and guys and girls, and let's ask hard questions to help refine this and make sure it hits the target that she's wanting to hit. So let's help her by asking some good questions to help think through everything.
Is this something where you've got a group of millennials who are committed to this issue, or you know that they've expressed an interest in it, and you're like pushing them into service and whatnot and training them up?
That is correct.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a great. It sounds like a great kind of thing to do to build relationship with them and also accomplish your objective as well.
Yes, sir.
One thing I'm looking at is so it sounds like you want to host this at your church. Did you approach these people, or did they approach you? And more and the question I'm really trying to get to is defining the relationship between the partnerships. Has that been established where people know, not like roles they're going to play, who's doing what, who's doing not tasks, but is in their mind and in your mind, is this an equal partnership where both of you will have opportunity to shape the way this goes down, so to speak, the way it manifests? So if you talk a little bit more around the partnership and okay, what's in your mind and what's in their mind and what you've agreed to.
So with the young people that are attending our church that are falling in the millennial category, mm-hmm, they approached me. So that's the first thing. They approached me and wanting to participate. They also approached my friend and colleague in wanting to participate. And so she referred them back to me since we're creating the opportunity. As far as the other partners, because we have not yet begun the planning strategy yet, I'm not sure at what level they want to partner or be involved, but I do know because of the previous discussions that I've had with them around what they want to be involved in and participate in, that they would be willing at some level. I just don't know at what level they will be willing to partner in. So for example, the young lady from the mayor's office, she is involved in what's called emancipation healing circles for African Americans. And I thought that was, a really great perspective on how to deal with some healing for the trauma around some of the issues that exist in the African American community. And so I have shared with her, I'd love to learn more, right? I'd love to, because I mean, I have some idea from some of the videos that I've watched on emancipation healing circles, but, you know, not really quite sure where or how that would fit in. But my interest in learning more from her has drawn her interest in wanting to participate, help, and support the type of social justice work that we're involved in and doing. So I'm not sure at what level the other partners would be involved in, but I'm exploring that.
So I'm gonna categorize this particular outreach under fighting injustices or community service, that whole big umbrella of everything that could fit under that. And I'm just going to share a couple principles to help you all, and then we'll move to the next person just for the sake of time. But some things that I've seen, one is defining the partnership. It's like when little the teenagers or people are dating, and like a youth pastor has that, you got to have the DTR, and you got to have the defining the relationship conversation between you and the girl, you know. I find it to be extremely helpful in the beginning, whether you're the host and it's your idea or you're being invited into it with them, and always trying to get to a place where there's equal partnership. If you're the host, you're gonna have to extend that grace to them and make it clear that you're extending that grace. But then also, if you're the host, you're gonna want to, you know, in the back of your mind where you're wanting to go. You're wanting to be able to proclaim the kingdom of God alongside of the service. And so number two is looking for ways that you will be able to, so number two is, I should actually say, is you want to get very, very like laser specific about the audience you are targeting to proclaim the gospel to. Not the one you're trying to serve, do the kingdom activity towards, but who's going to be hearing the gospel and who is going to be called to commit to the gospel at some point. So you want to just identify those two types of those different groups. So there's the partners, there's those that's being trafficked, you know, and it sounds like you have some people in your church. So you have just different groups. Each one of those will have different protocol. Each one of those will have different layers of trust that need to be developed. Each one of those will have different exposure to you and the gospel you're proclaiming. And so in your mind, you're just going to want to think, what steps do I need to take for the partnership level? What steps do I need to take for my partners to have an ear to hear the gospel from me? As we did the Price of Life campaign, where we did the human trafficking, fighting human trafficking, and 1,400 people came to Christ, we would work with our partners for up to like a year and a half. And when in our biggest campaign, it took like a couple years. So we're in relationship with them for a long time. From strat-op meetings to political conversations to marketing to all this stuff. So we're rubbing shoulders for a long time. So maybe it looks like in a certain space of folding pamphlets that I've got my stock questions as we're up late at night folding pamphlets, eating pizza, and I'm just having normal conversation and I'm getting to know Carrie over here. As I'm talking to Carrie, I'm learning more about her life, her spiritual background, etc. So maybe it's on that one-on-one level. On the partnership level, it could also look like very much being very clear and very gracious, but being very clear about how and when you will be, when it's time for you to speak, that you'll be speaking about why you're doing what you're doing from the kingdom perspective. You'll be speaking about God's love for the community, and so that there aren't any surprises down the road for your partner's sake, so that you don't mess up the relationship. Let's say it's for like the trafficked side, which it needs to be now when I say trafficked, again, I'm talking about the umbrella of injustice. So the person that is experiencing the injustice, whether that's on homelessness, whether that's on abuse or whatever, having the finesse to be able to do that very well, because of the trauma that they've been experiencing, etc. And the people that you're training on your team, having them very well trained in finesse and care and shepherding and things like that. And then for your church, let's say that there's lost millennials in your church that are now participating with you in this social, fighting the social justice. They know they want to do good. They want to see the rights, the wrongs in the world made right, but they don't know the first thing about Jesus probably, but they like you. what you start to do with them is now you can have more poignant conversations in your gathering time with them, whether that's in your millennial task force, whether that's in a Bible study or just having pizza with them, your fellowship times. And you're saying, hey, you know, this human trafficking thing that we're fighting, this homelessness thing that we're fighting, this abuse thing that we're fighting, you know, what do you think that Jesus thinks about this? Or what do you think that, from what you've heard me teach about the Bible, you've read maybe yourself, what does Jesus say about this?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this an issue that the church should be involved in? Mm-hmm. Beyond doing good, what's the theology, the kingdom theology behind, we don't use that words with them, but like we're trying to get them to understand, what is this new heaven and new earth thing that we're moving towards, that Jesus is coming to fight this injustice? And he says things like he's going to trample the traffickers and tread the winepress. Like, you know, what is all of that about? That he's coming with fury in his eyes to fight and to judge the oppressors. Mm-hmm. And so you just look at the different targets, the audiences that you'll be serving alongside of, and looking for ways to be very strategic in the way you share the gospel with them, so you can capitalize on the great opportunity, because you have to put in a lot of work, a lot of work, and you want to capitalize on those moments. So that's for all injustice. I'll put that under the umbrella of injustice, which fights goes into thresholds 1 and 2, gaining trust with the Christian and helping them to move from apathy about Christ to more curious about, what's this Jesus thing all about? So thank you for sharing, Pastor Sonia. Dean Price, would you like to go?
Sure, thank you. And I just my time boundary is in about 10 minutes. So just so Athena, I apologize in advance. Don't take it personally.
No.
But again, I'm kind of working on this project around this relationships class, you know, and I feel like I have has my kind of way to make connection, and I feel like back I got from the young adults who are members of the parish is I think I have a pretty good way of describing human brokenness, like lots of like different sorts of patterns of brokenness with a sense of humor, and you know, and basically just to communicate. And so for me, that's like the trust thing, is like basically to communicate to unchurched people, like, listen, I see you, it's all good, this is the human, you know, to be in broken relationships and to have these, you know, frustrating and you know, patterns that keep on, you know, snagging us. That's human, you know, I got them too. And, you know, and so kind of to be able to do that, I have a way of doing that with some humor. So I'm trying to lead with that, you know, kind of what I have to offer there. And then to kind of like earn the trust is like, say, there's no judgment, you know, on you here. We're all in this together, this human thing. And then the idea is then after describing the sorts of different patterns of brokenness, then I kind of go to here's what wholeness looks like. You know, here's what we're leaning into. This is, you know, the goal, which, hey, you know, I've been married for, you know, I always say, hey, I've been married for 23 years. I'm still trying to figure this out, you know, and we're, you know, step by step. But
is this a class?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like a seminar. So it's basically a one shot, you know, like an hour and 15 minutes. Like this is kind of almost like a TED Talk on steroids, but kind of like, you know, instead of 18 minutes, it's 75. And I chart this out and kind of give them some vocabulary to talk about what I know goes on, right, in relationships. And whether it's you know, I say it's like, you know, lovers, parents, brothers, friends, it's all happening, you know, so wherever they're coming from, they can relate. And so then the idea is like the curiosity is like to try to, so then I kind of, so how do you forgive? I mean, if okay, good, you know, like we're all broken, we have these wounds, these blockages, how do you do that, you know, and basically to, you know, say, hey, listen, if you have some questions about some strategies, it's almost like a tease for another time, you know, it's like, hey, listen, you know, if you're interested in kind of moving to the next level, there's some ways in which we move towards wholeness that, you know, and, you know, come meet me at this time, you know, and kind of have almost like a session 2 for those who might be curious about, okay, well, what is this? You know, how do you get to some healing? You know, how do you how does that happen? How do I think about my toxic family, or my mother that I don't talk to, or my dad, or whatever? How do I move towards being at peace? How do I get some peace around that? And so and then really it's okay. So it's not only what other people have done to you, it's, we've been in this too. And so we've done this to others, and there's this, and so kind of set the stage for, on a very personal level, after kind of getting some trust and kind of trying to sow some curiosity about how you get to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, it's like, now, if you want to know, I'll tell you about Jesus, because that's how it's happened for me. This is how I've gotten to the other side. And you may be able to figure out another way. This is just how Jesus was the way for me. I couldn't figure it out myself. I had to have someone else take the burden of my history. I had to, my relationships. So it's that's how I kind of see the, again, on their turf, at a bar, restaurant, whatever, 75 minutes, have some people, stalk the crowd in a sense, to a sin corner, but, some people who are, coming along with me and can then be in relationship with people afterwards. So my millennial team, I'm sorry?
How many of these have you done so far?
Oh, so I just said, just last Friday night, I have a dress rehearsal for that's what I invited my young adults to. And then these other kind of unchurched people that, 2 of them showed up and they really liked it. And then they came to the newcomer luncheon. So it's kind of like, I just feel like, if I can tap into the kind of the profile I'm looking at, is like the millennial who, they might have it all together on the outside.
Yeah.
But if they've got some pain in their heart, and I can have a chance to describe that accurately in a way that's accepting of them,
yeah,
then they might give me a chance.
Yeah, this is huge. So I know you got to go in a few minutes. I want to get us some hard questions to help you refine it.
Yeah.
Are there any hard questions that you all can think of? I'm going to give you all a little bit of time to stall for you. But what are some hard questions we can ask to help Dean Price refine this and think about any blind spots that any of us are doing this kind of outreach could probably have? One thing I love what I hear you sharing is in the videos that I shared around St. Patrick, that this was the way that he got so many people in his country to come to Christ, was by providing this place for family reconciliation, etc. So this is the way to be able to reach the West today. So I love what I'm hearing about it. All right, stalling over. What questions do you have for Dean Price to help? Hard questions.
I guess for me it would be, what is your end goal or your end game? And then after the training, what's next? Or after the seminar, what's next?
So that's, I guess the end goal in my mind is to kind of basically bridge them into a kind of healing, going from relational dynamics to healing to gospel, presentation, and so kind of, but to meet them where they're at and then provide kind of almost like provide off ramps in between each session. So like, hey, if they're not wanted, so I don't want them to feel like it's really bait and switch, like. Yeah. Like, oh, I'm glad you came here for a class on relationships. I'm actually here to talk to you about Jesus. And, so say this is about relationships. Now, if you want to learn about, key strategies for healing, come back, and we have something maybe a month later at the same place. And then in my head, my goal is then for those who show up to healing, then have like a more, say, if you're interested in kind of resources about spiritual resources for healing, and then maybe they come to, and then they're coming more to like an alpha sort of experience at the church. But that's my end goal. I forgot your second question, Sonia. I'm sorry.
I think you answered both of them in that.
Oh, okay.
One question I'm thinking about is marketing, just how to get the people in the room.
Yeah.
I think we've all experienced when we invite a group of millennials to something, they said yes and then they didn't show up, right? So, and then I'm a millennial, so nothing against my people. But again, we just have a lot of, we're going to go by our feelings in the moment of what we want to do. So the question I have is more of a thought, is what are some of the other marketing outlets you can use so that all of your eggs aren't in one basket? So I'm thinking like something like this is a buzz topic. So the #1 selling book at Urbana, the missions conference that we had in Intervarsity this last time around, was a book on anxiety. You know, it's a book on mental health and soul space stuff that we would call, right? So what you're talking about, Dean Price, is right up the line of what people need and are looking for. So Facebook ads, YouTube ads, Instagram, putting money behind it and filling up the room. You know, you can find a young person that can do, or you can hire somebody that does these ads, and you can fill up the room with 100 people, 50 people, whatever you want to fill it up with. But I think that you can, I think it will work, especially where you're located there in Dallas, in that particular area. It's so populated that you can get some strain, and it's like a book club type thing, right? So people do book clubs, and strangers will come into a space to talk about a topic, and you may or may not, they may or may not know you're a pastor or whatever, but whatever. It's just so how can you get more marketing out for it?
Right. I've done a lot of like, how do I dress? You know, like, I mean, I'm trying to think about this. And so I'm figuring like business casual kind of, you know, trousers, and because normally I wear this like all the time. You know, there's not a lot of variety in my wardrobe. I have, so like, I'll put on my one pair of khaki slacks and a button-up shirt, and then, you know.
Yeah, that's it, man. So that's really good. I want to draw your attention, Dean Price, before you go to the. So, Athena, what are some evangelistic outreaches that you can come up with to be able to help millennials explore Christ?
Okay, so when I think about the main ministry at our church, we reach out to the homeless and the drug addiction population, alcoholism. And so one of the main tactics, I could say, we use is to like assess their needs. And we know for that population, they need meals, they need food, they need clothes, they need showers, and that's what we provide. So in terms of millennials, my thought process is thinking about what are their needs for that generation in this time of their lives, what are the pressing needs in their lives. And so I'm thinking that pursuing like jobs and career opportunities, housing, educational endeavors, those are the type of things that age group is thinking like they're trying to build a foundation for their future. So I'm thinking that I'm hoping to create a space in our church or the resources in our church where we can provide those needs for that generation. And so I'm currently working with the alderman of our ward to try to put together this event. He has a different motive. He wants to get millennials involved in the political side of, in our ward and get them to give back and stay within our ward. But I think that by my involvement with putting that event together, I can establish the kind of relationship with the millennials that'll, for one, just be, so the relationship would be there so I can have the open communication to drive them in. So my idea after that is to try to initiate this program in our church where we can have like internship opportunities, bringing in retired veterans or like retired tradesmen who can reach out to students in the community who are going towards like a vocational track in their career. So the retired vets can train and intern with the younger generation.
Yeah.
So it's still patchy right now, but that's the thought process that I'm going through. And so I think through that approach, they'll learn to trust Christians because they'll see that we care about your needs. Like we care about trying to help. We're not trying to get something from you. We're not just trying to get you to help us, but we want to help you. But then also by providing or helping to provide the things that they need, it shows that that connection that, you know, God, the God we serve is Jehovah Jireh. He's our provider. He gives us the things that we need to make it, you know. So those are the two the thresholds that I'm thinking we can approach with that. But the details are still kind of choppy.
I hear you. No, that is awesome. And as I hear you share this, I'm thinking of a couple of things. So Pastor Sonia, it's time to ask some hard questions and help Athena. So the question I want to have for you, Athena, is it might seem a little different than the kind of question we've been asking before for others, but one is, how can you set this up so that you and your leadership team, whoever's going to be working with you on this, is not spread too thin? So that's a question to be able to think about, because there's going to be a lot of needs, just like the drug and alcohol demographic you were mentioning, right? The drug addicts you all serve. So like there's tons of needs. But you all can't fight all of them and provide all of them, right? So you got to like really focus for that demographic. So the same thing now with the millennial. And then the second question to help you identify where to focus is, you know, like what are the strengths that you carry personally as Athena, because you're really the forefront of this movement now at this point. It wouldn't be really Pastor Barclay or anyone else. It would be you. And Pastor Barclay is leaning on you to kind of help with that. So what are some of your strengths, and what are some of the things that you are really good at? And combine that with the things that you hear that they say they need. And as I've listened to you and just kind of been around you, one of the things I hear in you and your way is hospitality. Like you're a person that creates space and home. Instantly when a person speaks with you, they feel at home. They feel welcome. They feel warmth. They feel like I can relax here with her. So if something like a millennial cafe, so the third question would be, what's going to be your 30-second pitch at that meeting? As you're going around talking to millennials after it's over, the presentation's done, the event's done, and you're there just networking, just kind of meeting people. What's your 30-second pitch and ask that's going to get them to want to go to the next step with you? So the only way you're going to really know that is also to think through what are the things that they want and the things that they need. And so maybe you do that throughout your presentation with them, and you just throw out some of those. So by the time the end of the meeting comes, you already know what they're wanting and needing and thinking. So then when you go up to them and say, hey, we got this Millennial Cafe coming up. I want to invite you to it. We're going to meet at, I don't know, Illuminati's or whatever restaurants around there. Come on and hang out, and we'll talk about this more. So those are the three questions I will be thinking about. How can you help yourself and your team not be spread too thin? Number two, what is it that you are strong at, combined with what are the things that they will want and need? And then number three, what's your 30-second pitch at those meetings so that you can bring them to the next step?
Those are good questions. So the first one, how can we assure that we aren't spread too thin? I think we just have to start small and focus on, maybe, like I listed a lot of things, like we need housing, jobs, and education, but maybe we can just start with just the internship that will last a designated period of time, and maybe with just a handful of students, because that's how we did with the homeless ministry. It started small, and then over time people saw the positive effects, and then people just came on board, and over time you just develop the proper team to come alongside and help. As far as the strengths that I carry, well, I've had the experience so far working with Pastor Barclay in the administrative side, so just planning and organizing and pulling the right people together to make that happen. And then also, just like you mentioned, being the face of the organization, like trying to shield the millennials that come through, trying to shield them from the older generations, and just kind of bridge that gap and let them know, bridging that gap and letting them know, like, it's safe here. Like, I know it can appear that way, but it's safe here. So that could be my role. And then also trying to offer that same welcoming spirit to even the people who I need to come on board, just making them feel like this is something that we should be excited about. And then the 30-second pitch, now that is something that I need to give some thought to, but I did like your idea about just going into that event with a follow-up already in mind, so I can let them know, like, yeah, this is not going to end here. I still want to continue the growth of this relationship.
Yeah, because when you go into that event with that political office, whatever that event's going to look like, it's like you want to use every moment that you speak to gather information.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to gather information on the people you want to reach, and then positioning yourself in their eyes as the one that can help them get what it is they're saying that they're wanting. So you have all these different agendas that you and the whoever the politician is you're going to be working with has for that event. You're doing that, yes. You're building a relationship with that politician, yes. But every time I get up to speak, I'm going to ask a question that's going to give me some intel on top of whatever else I'm supposed to be saying while I'm up there. And then when I go to speak to that person, I incorporate that into the 30-second pitch, and then I got it. I'm on there ready to go with them.
Okay. I was also thinking about before the actual meeting. The meeting is in April, the gathering. So before that, I'm thinking about generating a survey that could be guided toward getting an idea of what their needs are, so I can know going into that what type of information that we even want people there to present. Is going to be a panel discussion. So what kind of things that we know they want to hear, and then so I will know already going into it. That's the idea.
I'm gonna give you a little trick that we do. Like, so whenever we talk about, one of the hard things to do in church is get volunteers, and so you get people to come up and say, hey, like, do you have a need for napkins? And we'd be like, yes. Do you have a need for, a children's worker? Yes. Do you have whatever they ask? We're gonna say yes to, and we're gonna create it for them, because we know that moment of them offering is so rare that we'll be like, we need to get them in now, and we'll figure the rest out later. So whenever you go whenever you listen to them and you speak to them about what is it, hey, what would you like how would you like to be able to explore spirituality, or whatever question you're going to ask them, how would you like to be able to figure out ways to grow in your faith at this stage in your life? What would you look for in that kind of an environment? You want to ask those kinds of questions, like what kind of environment would you want to join to be a part of, that you would feel comfortable in exploring your faith or growing to know God more? You ask that question directly, and then they say it and say, hey, we got that. Come to this meeting at Illuminati's Pizza, and we're going to be talking about how we do that. And now you're starting to get your millennial task force. So like whatever it is that they say, you say, hey, that's what you're trying to work on. We want the same thing. This Tuesday at 8:00, we got a meeting. Matter of fact, when you get off of work, hey, that's when the meeting is. You revolve everything around it. You go on their turf completely. Go on their turf with their desires. Go on their turf with time and location. Like, that's when the meeting is, exactly. And if you gotta have three or four meetings like that, so be it. But you feel what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just pause us right here, because we got the next session about to start. But I want to just do a quick little review on a quick summary, not a review, a quick summary on the 5 thresholds and different types of outreaches. So on page 20, you can see, let me just try to share it real quick. All right, so this is the table that we just finished working through, which is the 5 thresholds, and we've been looking at what are different types of outreaches we can do at each threshold. So I'm just going to walk through this little summary to give different types of outreach. So for the threshold of trust, where they're trying to learn to become a Christian, learn to trust a Christian, one of the things we found to be just really helpful are events around fellowship, parties, going bowling, things where you're just hanging out, just shooting the breeze, kicking it, seeing that you're fun, that you're likable. It's an opportunity to have conversations with them, to learn more about their life, them to learn about your life, etc. I shared about my good friend Dick, who has led he's reached about 400 something people from his living room, doing something called Family Night, where he just invites people into his home every Monday and every Sunday. So that's one thing that you can. You know what I think I'm gonna actually do is let me stop this real quick.